What do you think? Do we only live once? Or have we been here before, living out different lives, each one teaching our souls something new? If you've ever wondered why certain fears or people or places feel so familiar, maybe it's because they are. And the answers you're looking for might not be in this life at all. They might be from the ones that came before it. In the podcast episode you're about to hear, you'll experience what happened when one woman journeyed into her past lives and discovered evidence that there is something more out there. So let this episode be like a movie in your mind. It's audio only, and we're going to take you on a journey that challenges the idea that we only live once and reveals what our past selves might be trying to tell us about who we are today. Welcome to Better Beliefs. Have you ever met somebody for the first time, but you felt like you've known them forever? Or maybe you've gone somewhere new and felt right at home, like you've been there before, even though you know you haven't. Maybe you've had a dream so vivid, it felt more like a memory than imagination. There's something about those moments that makes us wonder, where do they come from? Is it just the random firing of neurons, the brain playing old movie clips made out of imagination and emotion? Or could there be something deeper hiding under the surface of our conscious minds? A place where stories from other times, other places, and maybe even other lives are still alive inside of us. Across cultures and centuries, people have claimed to remember being somebody else in a past life. Sometimes through dreams, sometimes through hypnosis, sometimes through unexplainable childhood memories that just won't fade. But whether you believe in reincarnation or not, the real question is one we all share. If we've lived before, what does that mean for the life we're living right now? Could the fears and patterns and connections we struggle with today be echoes from a story that started long before we were born?
Previous lives do impact our current life, and we have the ability to heal the trauma that we might have lived in a past life, in this life right now.
That's Catherine Winters, and she experienced something called past life regression therapy, where people are able to pull at the threads of what it really means when our hearts take their final beat. In this episode, we're going to step into that mystery, not to prove whether reincarnation is real, but to consider it as a possibility, and to understand why so many people feel like it has to be. And together, we'll explore a question as old as consciousness itself. Do we only live once? And if not, what are our past selves trying to tell us about who we are today? Welcome to Better Beliefs. What if the only thing standing in your way is what you believe about yourself, your life, or what's possible? Thousands of people have faced that same question and discovered the power to shift reality itself. I'm Brent Kokel, and on Better Beliefs, I tell the stories of real people who changed everything by first changing their minds. Most of us were raised to see death as a period at the end of a sentence, a final stop. The lights go out, and whatever we've built, learned, or loved, it all just ends. Then we get judged for how well we did, and that determines where we spend the rest of eternity. But what if death isn't like hitting a wall? What if it's more like a doorway, one we've walked through countless times before? But every time we walk through it, we forget what's on the other side when we come back. In most of the Western world, we inherit the story that you only live once, you get one chance, you have one ending. But in lots of Eastern and indigenous cultures, people see death differently. It's more of a transition, a kind of continuation of our soul's long-term journey. And you have to admit that when you start looking at it that way, the fear of death begins to soften a little bit. Because maybe we're not here to cling to this single lifetime. Maybe what we're here to do is remember that consciousness doesn't end when the body does.
I think what this past life regression, like the purpose of me going through that in this lifetime, was to give me evidence that there's something more.
That's Catherine Winters, who you heard from at the beginning of the episode, and she's experienced one of her past lives through an induced hypnotic state when she was 12 years old. Just in case you're on the fence about hypnosis being legit, we'll get to what it is and how exactly it works a little later on. But let's start with Catherine.
I grew up in a very open-minded family. My mother was very, very spiritual, and she did a lot of meditation. And so she taught me that as a young child. And anytime we had an opportunity to go to like a tarot card reader, we would go.
There was a spiritual bookshop not too far from the house where she grew up that her family went to a couple weekends a month for guided meditations, spiritual readings, things like that. One weekend, there was a guy named William Henry visiting the shop. You might have heard his name if you watch Ancient Aliens on the Discovery Channel. He's the guy who did that. Anyway, he offered to guide each member of Catherine's family to experience their own previous lifetimes through past life regression, which can be accessed through a meditation that runs deep enough to tap into your subconscious mind. A few days later, William Henry was in Catherine's walk-in basement with a makeshift ceremonial setup using a massage table her mom had for work.
I was instructed to just lie down on the table and become very relaxed. And William Henry, he walked me through just a general relaxation type meditation. And again, I had experience in meditation through my mom growing up as a kid. And so it was easy for me to get into that kind of meditative state and let go.
Once she was fully relaxed, visions started to come to her.
I remember I had to look at myself, or at least in my meditative mind, I saw myself walking on this path, kind of like from above. And I noticed that I looked different than what I look like now.
She says the version of herself she saw in this vision had really light, almost white blonde hair, which is very different from the brunette she is in this lifetime.
And so I see myself walking down this path in the woods, and it's very quiet. And then it leads to an opening. And the opening, there is a building.
The person guiding her through the meditation prompted her to walk into the building. So she did.
There was also a directory at the ground floor of the building. And so I was told to go look at the directory to find the room of past lives.
Catherine looked at the directory and found the room of past lives.
The next thing I know, I'm being guided up a staircase. And I remember also that the staircase was made out of wood. And I get up to the top level, and I'm walking towards the room of past lives. And I notice this beautiful, ornate wood carving of almost like a rose bush or something that's around framing the door.
She paused right here when she was telling me the story. I must have had a skeptical look on my face that said something like, how do you know your guide wasn't just feeding you all of this information?
The meditation was very detailed. And I think throughout, William Henry is checking in, what do you see? Right? Because he's just guiding me, but he's not telling me to see a wooden staircase. He's just saying, go up a staircase. And so I'm seeing the wooden staircase. I'm in the hallway. He's not telling me, what is the door? The door is wood. No, I'm seeing that, and I'm explaining to him, okay, I'm in front of the door. It's made out of wood.
The look on my face must have gone away because Catherine seemed ready to get back to the story, picking up right where she left off with her standing in front of the door to the room of past lives.
At that point in time, there hadn't been any emotions associated with any of the meditation. So when he tells me to go into this room, I'm just expecting to open the door, and it's just going to be another room. So I open the door and I walk in, and I am hit with the biggest grief and sadness I had ever experienced at that time. And I just uncontrollably started crying. And I'm just shaking on the massage table.
Seeing her physical and emotional reaction to the visions Catherine was having were enough for the people guiding her to pull her from the room of past lives.
I exit the room and there's some distance between those feelings. And they asked me, like, what happened? What did you feel? Like, what's going on? And I said, I felt so sad. I just felt death. I felt so much death. And they said to me, do you want to continue? Do you want to go back into the room? And I was like, yes, I do. I want to go back in. I'm very, very curious.
We'll pick Catherine's story back up in a minute, but I want to take a detour here to look at how she might be experiencing all of this. That means we need to look into hypnosis. And if you're like me, when you think of hypnosis, you probably think of somebody standing on a stage clucking like a chicken. But that's a sideshow version, and it sits pretty far off base from clinical hypnotherapy, which is more like a deep state of meditation that helps you go into your subconscious mind.
There are 3 things that are needed for a hypnotic modality: authority, a doctrine or a paradigm, and you have to feel something.
That's Norm Plotkin, a hypnotherapist with 12,000 hours of sessions under his belt, including guiding patients through past life regressions. He points out that the 3 things you need for a hypnotic modality, authority, a doctrine or paradigm, and a feeling, are actually all around us all the time. We just don't notice. For example, if you're not feeling well, you go to a doctor who has authority and treats you with the doctrine of modern medicine, and then you feel better. You were in a suggestible state because you submitted to the authority of the doctor in the white lab coat and believed what she told you. When you think of it like that, it's not too hard to draw the line between it and the trance-like states hypnotherapists take patients into.
There are 3 levels of hypnosis. There's hypnoidal hypnosis, where you're driving home from work and you pull into the driveway and you don't remember the trip. That's the most common experience for people. Then there's catalepsy, which is the state of hypnosis that I induce. Your hands will go a little numb, maybe your feet, you may feel heavy or light. But you're semi-conscious because I want them to remember. The deeper level of hypnosis is somnambulism.
Picture somnambulism like watching a movie so intently that it feels like you're in it. This is the deepest trance state somebody can get to. It's where your conscious self-monitoring mind is bypassed, and you can get into the really deep memories, the symbolic material, and these regress states without your usual mental filters. To put it another way, you're tapping directly into your subconscious mind. We'll get to that more later because one of the possibilities researchers are considering is that we store memories of our past lives in our subconscious minds. They're just too deep in there to access without help. Let's get back to Catherine in the middle of her past life regression. As a quick refresher, she entered the room of past lives and was overcome with sadness and grief to the point where she was uncontrollably sobbing and shaking. The therapist guiding her through the experience pulled her out of the room of past lives, and once she collected herself, she told them she wanted to go back in.
I'm finally able to just be in the room and not feel overwhelmed. So that's when I'm directed to start looking around. Well, my room is empty. I don't see anything. I think my mom had like a bookcase or a bookshelf or was in like an actual library, and here I am, I'm standing in an empty room. And I'm like, do I not have any past lives?
Her guides told her to keep looking, like maybe there was something in the room she hadn't seen yet.
And I remember I saw this like window at the very, very top of the room. Like the ceilings are so tall, and there's this one little window that appears, and then it's streaming light, and it's pouring light onto this book that's on the ground.
She was guided to walk up to the book, and as she got closer, she saw it had an ornate carving on it, kind of like the one she saw on the door frame that led to the room of past lives.
And then there's that same ornate rose design on the book, and the book is made out of like gold.
They asked her to read the title of the book.
I can't. There is a title, like embossed into the book, but I can't read it. It's so worn that it's impossible to read. And so they tell me, okay, we're not going to open a book that we can't read the title of.
And when she put the book down, she noticed she was wearing a ring with a black stone in it. And as odd as this sounds, she says she was pulled into the stone and then everything went black for a second. When she opened her eyes, she was in her past life.
And I find myself on a farm. And that was apparently one of my past lives. I found myself on a farm. And so the first thing that I'm told to do is go find someone and ask where you are. So I'm going around trying to find anyone that's possibly like living with me, a neighbor, someone around. And I end up finding, well, I found my mother, I found my brother, and my father.
She says she saw her father from that life standing with his back to her, looking out over the crops to storm clouds in the distance, and he had a worried look on his face. Catherine went up to him, but he wouldn't turn around.
Now, my father, he wouldn't speak to me. I don't know why. And my mother was the one that told me that I was in Kansas. And so then I was told to ask what year, and it was in the around 1880s.
As she's telling me all of this, I found myself somewhere in the middle between fascinated enough to want to go do a past life regression myself and skeptical enough to doubt any of it was real. My first question was how Catherine was so certain that what she experienced was actually a past life instead of just her imagination.
First and foremost, the emotions I felt when I entered the room of past lives. That shocked me. How could I all of a sudden go from totally fine, calm, because I'm in a meditative state, to bawling my eyes out, feeling this intense grief and the feeling of death? That made me a believer that it was real. The second thing is I would never pick Kansas.
I started looking into past life regression more and followed the breadcrumbs down a dozen trails or so online: Reddit, Substack, and a handful of psychological journals. The biggest research project on this came from the 1970s when a PhD named Helen Wambach collected the data from a little over 1,000 people who went through group regressions. She compiled everything she found and published it in a 189-page report, which I read, and boiled down into a few important points. First, when thousands of people have been regressed, their stories start to cluster. Most of the subjects don't claim to have been famous or powerful in their previous lives. They remember being farmers or healers or soldiers, pretty much ordinary people across the board. When they were asked to describe the details of the visions they saw, things like clothing, the food they were eating, and what they saw around them, that all matched the era they say they lived in. And when they reached the moment of death in that past life, 98% of them describe a feeling of peace, kind of release, like the weight of their body was gone. But even as I'm reading this, the researcher in me wants something more concrete. All of these were controlled studies where people are given cues or suggestions under hypnosis. What's to stop them from creating these highly convincing past life stories purely out of their own imagination? The content of what they're seeing in regression could also shift based on what they're told to expect. Not to mention, it's virtually impossible to do a scientific study on this because you couldn't have a control group where people not under hypnosis were experiencing past life regression. Their conscious minds just wouldn't allow it. But there was still something eating at me. How is it possible that all 1,088 people in Wambach's study came out of hypnosis saying the same thing? That the fears they carry, the patterns they can't seem to break, the things that seem to haunt them in this life, all trace back to something that happened in a life they say they've lived before.
My understanding of your lives is that none of the lives are random, and you actually reincarnate with your soul group. You'll have lifetimes with the same souls. You might have contracts with them to be your brother, your sister, your father, your mother. Actually, when my mom had her past life regression, she recognized my dad as her father in that lifetime. And I think sometimes when there's unresolved things that happen in another lifetime, there'll be uh, a different lifetime where you can have the opportunity to resolve those issues.
The implication of what Catherine just said is important because it would mean that memories stay with us from life to life. And if they stay with us, they must serve a purpose. Maybe memory isn't just about remembering facts or events. Maybe it's how our souls learn. And if we keep coming back with the same group of souls, like Catherine mentioned a minute ago, maybe the point isn't to repeat the story. Maybe it's to evolve it. Maybe our memories are the way the universe keeps score of what we've learned and what we still need to understand. Which opens up a whole new question. If memory is the tool, then what exactly are we here to learn?
If we soften our perspective and look at this as a place where souls come to learn about emotion, it's believed that emotion doesn't exist anywhere else in the universe, and souls come to Earth to experience emotion. The duality, you can't know good unless you know bad. You can't know light unless you know dark. That dual nature. And the goal is to live a life that you learn the lessons that your soul came here to learn so that you can transcend.
That's Norm Plotkin again, the hypnotherapist you heard from a little earlier in the episode. As I'm asking him about all this, I'm hoping he has a scientific, data-driven answer to back up what he's saying, because I'm at the point where I want to believe it.
And this body is temporary. Our soul is eternal. They've tried to capture the soul and measure the soul. They measure the brain, and you're missing the point if you're too scientific about this, because there's something that just has to be taken on faith.
When I think about all this, the stories, the science, the skepticism, I keep coming back to the same question. What if everything we're doing in this life is just preparation for our next one? Now, that's not an argument to back away from what's hard about our lives because we'll get another shot. It's actually a reason to lean into the hard things a little bit more, because if our souls really do come here to learn, then the frustration, the heartbreak, the loss, all of those experiences that test us and break us open, those might be the very lessons we signed up for. And maybe the point isn't to avoid the friction, but to understand what it's trying to teach us. I've started thinking about it like this. Every time I'm faced with something that makes me feel internal friction, I ask myself, what if this is the class I chose, and I just don't want to fail the same one twice? Because if we really do carry memories from life to life, then the best way to honor all of our lives that came before this one, and all the ones still to come, is to learn what we came here to learn this time. So if you find yourself in a pattern or facing a lesson that keeps repeating, maybe that's not punishment. Maybe that's the universe saying, let's give this one another try. Thank you so much for investing your time in listening to today's episode. It is always a joy to put these things together. And as always, the purpose of these things is to just start you thinking, maybe thinking a little bit differently than you have before. Obviously, tackling a big issue here today that we're kind of towing the line on religion and science and spirituality and meeting all of those in the middle. I don't think we'll find a definitive answer on this until we don't really get to come back and tell the story, but man, it is a very, very hopeful thing for me to think my belief system about us having multiple lives and having multiple tries to get things right in our relationships with ourselves and the world around us. So again, I'm really grateful for you for spending the time and listening to this episode. Please do me a favor. If you believe that this episode was worth a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening to it on, please give me a 5-star review. And then the greatest thing you can do by far to help the show beyond just keeping to listen is to share this with one other person you think needs to hear the message from today. So I'd be very grateful if you would do that, and I'll see you on the next episode. Better Beliefs is owned by 6350 Ventures. It is produced, written, edited, and spoken by me, Brent Kokel. Yes, I do all the things. Original cover art was by Jenny H. Designs, and original music for the opening of the Better Beliefs podcast is by the Lonely Ramblers. All other music credits are in the show notes.